It cannot be illegal to use force to prevent the killing of such numbers of innocent people. I will take no lessons, Mr. President, in international law from Russia.
Well, that is British UN Ambassador Karen Pierce taking the Russians to task at the United Nations Security Council yesterday, addressing the 15 members of the Security Council about the U.S., British and French airstrikes and Russian culpability. You know, she bluntly and directly put the blame not just on Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad, but also on Moscow, saying the world cannot abide by the deployment of chemical weapons. Ambassador Pierce joins us now in the studio. This is her first United States television news interview as ambassador to the United Nations. Ambassador, welcome. And welcome to Fox News Channel.
Thank you very much. Great honor.
The United Nations itself was founded on the ashes of World War II, on the principles and tenets of Franklin Delano Roosevelt and your Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, defeating the Nazis. And here we have this grave humanitarian crisis that is overwhelming. It is happening on our watch. Why has the civilized world, the West, been unable to stop it in Syria?
I think you're absolutely right that the UN was founded with a noble purpose and with noble principles. And if the UN can't deal with this sort of situation, then why have it? But it is the price of keeping the UN in being that there is a veto. I think it's therefore incumbent on people like the P5 to uphold international law, to uphold the principles and purposes of the UN, and to do something about such crises as this. And what you have with Russia is one P5 member who ought to have a special responsibility. That P5 member is blocking the UN and the West being able to help resolve this problem.
Do you believe, in saying that Vladimir Putin has abdicated any civilized responsibility, that they have now vetoed, 12 resolutions, 6 dealing with chemical weapons, and they've allowed this and supported this, allowed this to happen?
I don't want to go that far. I hope, even at this late stage, that Russia would still come back and would still help us resolve this crisis. But I think we find it astounding, as do many people, that a country that helped build the Chemical Weapons Convention and the global non-proliferation regime, that Russia can now be one of those rogue countries that are looking to undo it.
Do you feel that Russia, as you say, is a rogue country?
I think it has those tendencies. I think we would much rather get back to a stage where Russia worked with the rest of the P5 and the Security Council to find a way to bring the Assad regime to the negotiating table and get back into the political process, to have a cessation of hostilities, to dismantle the chemical weapons, and for there to be accountability. I think it's worth remembering that Russia helped pass the resolution that demanded that Syria give up its chemical weapons. So she now needs to deliver.
But then again, they disbanded the inspections a couple of years ago to try to go after the chemical weapons.
Well, they originally helped set that mechanism up, and then last year in November, you're quite right, they dismantled it. So I think there are some very serious questions as to why Russia is supporting Assad in breaking international law to this extent, why they condone the suffering and the killing of so many innocent civilians in Syria.
There is a new resolution now supported by the French and by you. Do you think this will pass, or do you think that Russia will have a 13th veto?
Well, the 4 conditions I laid out about what needs to happen next, particularly the political process, this is what this resolution is designed to take forward. It's something the French, the British and the Americans are cooperating on together. I think it represents the will of the vast majority of people on the Security Council, including China. So over the next few days and weeks, we will be pursuing that with the Secretary General, and we look to the Russians to come back into the international fold and help us resolve this conflict.
Do you think these airstrikes were enough? They were very limited, just with 3 storage areas and this supposed research facility. And in a sense, they were kind of choreographed. You know, the U.S. apparently had a deconfliction phone call to the Russians telling them it's coming, not specifically where. Do you think it's enough, or we should have done more? Take out Assad's air force, try to take out the helicopters, but then we're flown to Russian bases to protect them. Should there be a no-fly zone imposed over Syria?
Well, the airstrikes that you saw in the last 48 hours have been deliberately set up to be limited and targeted and specific, and to concentrate on CW facilities. That was the immediate problem that we were seeking to address, the use of CW and the humanitarian distress of the Syrian people. We will have to see what happens over the coming days. I don't want to preempt that, but these airstrikes were deliberately set up in the way they were. I hope they will induce the Russians to help us put this conflict to rest once and for all.
Do you think that Putin and Assad has gotten that message? I mean, look, there's video of Assad, if we have it now, a propaganda video, where they showed him going to work, walking to work yesterday morning with a briefcase. There he is in one of the presidential palaces, like nothing has happened, and he said it won't deter them. And the last strike last year, 59 missiles, that did not stop him from using chemical weapons.
We wouldn't be in the conflict we are if President Assad were a different sort of person. But we all need to work together in the Security Council to try and find a way to persuade the Russians to bring him to the table. But I think your video shows quite why Russia is so critical to this. President Assad himself has shown repeatedly that left to his own devices, he is not going to come to the peace table. But he has allies, he has Russia, he has Iran. They need to help bring him to that table, get a cessation of hostilities, dismantle the chemical weapons, and make progress on the political progress.
And in terms of Russian behavior, you have this string of alleged assassinations with the nerve agent in your country. That's an attack on Britain. What would you say to Russia about this? And to the critics who say, well, that's a setup. The British conducted that attack. They have something called BZ as an agent, and the Russians are saying they didn't do it and denying all responsibility.
Well, I think we've set out very clearly why we believe the attack was carried out by the Russian state, and we've also set out what we believe was the nerve agent used, and this has been confirmed by the independent international body looking after chemical weapons, the OPCW. They confirm it's a military-grade nerve agent. Only states have those. Only Russia has the motive, the means and the method to carry out such an attack, and a track record as well. In terms of the Russian claims on BZ, I mean, frankly, I think this is another 1984. It's an attempt to rewrite the news, to rewrite history in their own image, and it just won't wash.
And finally, this is what, your 28th day at the UN in this job? What, you got off the plane and went right to work?
Yes, I did. The Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, was very kind to receive me and do what we call presenting credentials, which is the formal diplomatic announcement that you're in a post as ambassador. So he very kindly saw me within 3 hours of getting off the plane.
Well, what a way to start. Ambassador Karen Pierce, thank you for spending time with us here on the Fox News channel, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow in our coverage of the UN as you continue.
Good. Thank you very much.